Researchers have pinpointed the cause of fish kills, which often follow floods on the Richmond River floodplain. Past studies have shown that a large amount of deoxygenated water flows into the Richmond estuary system as floodwaters drain away, but its source has been unclear. Now, a 2-year study led by Southern Cross University environmental scientist Dr. Vanessa Wong shows the source of the deoxygenated water is the mid-estuary back swamp basins and other low-lying areas. A team of more than 20 people took more than 200 water samples from across the estuary following the January 2008 flood and the one in May 2009. A major fish kill followed the 2008 flood, while there was no such event last year. The big difference between the two floods was the temperature, which was much higher during the 2008 event. Dr. Wong said drainage systems had changed the vegetation on the floodplain.
When it flooded in the past, a lot of floodwaters were held in the back swamp basins. They didn't go anywhere, and that's when, and the recession of that floodwater was largely by evaporation, so it just sat there until it all evaporated away. But now with these drainage systems, we can move water much quickly off the floodplain. So in order, I guess, to give you a bit of an example, previously, before the drains went in, the water would sit in these floodplains for about 100 days. And now these floodwaters can be exported, can be moved off the floodplain in a matter of 3 or 4 days. So there's that big increase in connectivity between floodplain and the channel. Because of the drains as well, we've changed the vegetation on the floodplains. So before there used to be, these back swamp basins were wetlands, and they had plants that were basically tolerant of waterlogging. But now, because of the drains, the whole area is a lot drier. We can now graze these areas. We've got pasture species, and the minute these pasture species are flooded, they die. Once they die, with the overlying floodwaters, the microorganisms start to decompose the dead vegetation there, and that's actually what consumes all the oxygen in the floodwaters. So that's what drives your oxygen down, and so you end up with very low oxygen in the overlying waters. Once the flood starts to recede, a lot of floodwaters with no oxygen in them then get exported into the main channel, and that's basically what causes your big fish kills. So I guess, so there are basically 2 big drivers of the oxygenation events. That's the change in vegetation and the change in the drainage systems. The other factor in these events is temperature, because in January 2008 it was really, really warm, so the bugs were in their happy little environment. So the warmer it is, the faster these bugs can decompose vegetation, and the faster they can consume oxygen. In May this year, the water temperature was a lot lower, so we're looking at, I think the water temperature at Wardell was down around 17 degrees, which was a good 10 degrees less than what was found in January. So even though there was a flood and the vegetation did die on the floodplain, the bugs, it was too cold for the bugs to actually decompose all that dead vegetation, so there was a bit of sagging oxygen.